everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I want to start a new series reading vlog. This one is for a series where I have already previously read the first and the second book, but I want to finish this trilogy off and I'm doing a reread. So I thought I'd take you along with me. And this is for the Simon Snow series by Rowell. Now, this book came out many years ago. I think in 2015? Yes, 2015. And so that year I got it, I read it, and I immediately fell in love with this book. I absolutely love it. At some point there were two sequels. We will talk about those later on in the video, but this is pretty much a standalone also, so if you only want to read this one, it's fine as well. I think so far this is the best one. I didn't love the second one so much, but it's gonna be interesting rereading it. In the Simon Snow series, we are following a guy called Simon, as you would have guessed, and he is a magician. Now, this series, or this first book, I should say, is a little bit of a parody of Harry Potter. So Simon is the chosen one, and he has a vampire roommate called Baz, who is like the bad guy, the bully. He does like evil stuff, and they are roommates and they hate each other. And then we have Penelope. Penelope is a little bit of a know-it-all. She is very good at magic, and she and Simon are best friends. And at the beginning of the book, they are about to start their final year in this school called Watford, and there is this like big evil thing called the humdrum, and it basically sucks the magic out of the world, and so it is very much feared, and it's also kind of the nemesis of Simon. So the whole like prophecies thing is about Simon saving the magical world from the humdrum. That's at least how people interpret it. We are following these characters. We also have Agatha. Agatha is Simon's girlfriend. However, she isn't really in love with him. She wants to figure out her own life in the world. And we have Beth, Agatha, and Penny, who are all from like old mage families. So they have like a long tradition, and Simon is born and normal, so a person who doesn't have magic, but he has magic. So he's kind of the first one of his kind as well, and then he's like ultimately powerful. And the problem is that with all of the old magic families, they are getting weaker and weaker. So with every generation, they just have less magical power. And in this world, we also have vampires and lots of other creatures who might use the declining powers of the mages to try to take over in a way. So there's a lot going on. We have like different kinds of wars between the mage that is actually running the school and the magical world in Britain versus the old families. We have the dark creatures versus the mages. We have the mages versus the humdrum. So a lot of moving pieces. And our characters are just trying to finish their final year. And so there is a little bit of like teenage drama as well. As I said, Agatha is kind of trying to break up with Simon. Simon thinks that Agatha is into Baz, while Baz has different inclinations, let's just say that. I love this so much. Like, rereading this, it's giving me life. It's so great. I love these characters. And while I said that this is kind of a parody of Harry Potter, it still manages to create its own characters and its own story. And Baz is my favorite character. I love him so much, and we do get perspectives in here from all of these characters as well as some others. So it's just so good. So we do have also the mage, who is kind of the Dumbledore character. So he is not only the headmaster of this magical school, but he is also kind of running the magical world in Britain. So we do have like different magical traditions in like different countries. So for example, in the US, there isn't really like magical schools. The magical children just go to normal schools, and then their parents, I guess, teach them the magic. I love this so much. I love this so much. And as I said, the characters are fantastic. I do love that we get these different perspectives. The writing style does need you to get a little bit used to it, at least for me, because I don't read a lot of YA anymore. It does read a little bit flippant. It does feel kind of like teenagers, but then also not. I have a hard time describing it, but it fits the story very well. Now, the beginning of this book for me was a little bit harder to get into because at the beginning we don't really know what's going on with Baz. We do hear about him, but we don't get his perspective at the start until something happens. And then once he is introduced to the story, I'm like all hard eyes reading this. It's so good. I love this so much. Is this gay? It is gay. It is gay, you guys. I'm eating it up. These two characters, like Simon and Baz, this is like enemies to lovers. Like, they literally were brought up to be enemies, but they just can't stop thinking about each other, and it's so great. And the fact that they're also roommates, and especially with Baz, because Baz is the one who actually knows how he feels, and he like that moment when he says out loud, or like in his head, but to us, that he is in love with Simon, is like, my sweet boy. But he has been taught to hate him, and so he's really trying to like do what his family wants from him and stuff like that. And then Simon is just oblivious for a long time. I love that as well. So it's so good. So I'm currently halfway through, absolutely loving my reread of this, and I feel like I've blabbered on for way too long already without really giving you much information, apart from the fact that I absolutely love this book. So I think I'm just gonna go and finish this reread. I love it. And maybe let me say like one more thing. I have the worst memory in the whole world. And even though I have read this book already 2 or 3 times, I don't quite remember anymore. I still don't remember everything that happens in here. Like, I think I still remember the big picture things, but there is like other things. Like, we have this character called Lucy in here, and I do kind of remember, I'm pretty sure I remember who she is, but I don't quite remember how it fits into the story of like overall. And so yeah, I'm having so much fun rereading this, because it's also like still kind of like keeping me on the edge of my seat to like figure out what all of the connections were. And I just really love the way this book kind of builds on something that I have loved as a child, but makes it completely its own. It's a little bit more edgy. As I said, it is very gay, and it still has these elements. Like, right now, all of our characters have kind of come together to work on this mystery together, and we still have this whole thing with like the summer break and then getting back to the school, and now we're around the Christmas time, so all of like Simon's friends are leaving for Christmas to go to their families and all of that. So I'm having such a good time. So yeah, I'm just gonna go read it. And I hope, if you haven't yet, please pick this book up. I know it's already older, but if you did like Harry Potter before like J.K. Rowling decided to make the world really understand what a terrible person she is, then I would highly recommend you try this book. I love it. I haven't really said much about how this vlog's going to go, so the basic idea is I will always talk to you when I'm halfway through a book and when I've finished a book, and that way we will read the series together, and in the end I will let you know whether I think it sticks the landing. So we'll talk again once I have finished Carry On. So I'm finally back to tell you that I finished reading Carry On, specifically rereading Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. And this book is still everything to me. Is this book perfect? No, absolutely not. But do I love it? Yes. Yes, I do. I really enjoy this book, even if it has flaws. It just has characters that I care about so deeply, and I think that some of the things this story is doing are really smart, and I enjoy the conclusion. I don't specifically love the kind of final battle we get in this one, but I do like all the unraveling of the different threads we have going on in here, trying to figure out what happened to Baz's mom, trying to figure out who Lucy is, and all of that. So I love this book, and I don't really know if you should trust my assessment of that. I also realized with horror that this is 10 years old now. How did that happen? Like, at some point it mentions kind of like the end of 2015, and I was like, oh my god, we were all such innocent little children at the end of 2015. Like, what 10 years it has been since I first read this book. But yeah, I just love it. And as I said, I don't know if you should trust me on that, because I have reread it so many times and it's just like a nostalgia thing as well. I don't know if you would have the same experience if you pick it up for the first time now, but it was so good. And I love Baz, and I love Baz and Simon together. Now, I've been trying to think about how to describe their dynamic, and I think the best way I can describe it is Simon is kind of a golden retriever guy, and Baz is basically a hissing cat. And that's their like romantic dynamic, and I love it. I just love it. I love Baz. Yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna say for this. It's very hard to talk about this spoiler free, because like a lot of the reveals are really where the heart of the story is, but I don't want to take that from you if you haven't read the book yet. However, if you have read the book, I want to go into a couple of spoilers in a second. If you haven't read the book and you want to hear my spoiler-free thoughts on the sequels, then please use the chapters to jump over this next bit where I talk about the spoilers. Should be very easy. So, spoiler territory ahead. I love this book, and I think what I really enjoyed themes wise when I read this the first time is the way that this book portrays grooming. And if we keep it with the Harry Potter kind of reference or like comparison, I think that, you know, Dumbledore in Harry Potter really isn't a great character and or like a good person, and I think that is brought up in the original books a little bit as well, but in here is like really kind of turned on its head, and it's like really portrayed as the grooming that it is, you know, taking this child and bringing him up to believe that he has this big destiny and he's the chosen one and he's like the great mage or whatever. So I really like how this book goes about creating this character of the mage. Now, you could probably argue that you know, he was someone who wanted to revolutionize the magical world in the UK, and he wanted to create more opportunities for people who are not from the long-standing magical families. So in a way, he's a little bit of a socialist, I guess, and making him the like big bad guy in the end, you could probably also argue is a little bit reactionary. However, when I first read it, I didn't really read it like that. It's probably something that just like, you know, the world we're living in right now is doing to my brain. Yeah, as I said, it's not a perfect book. However, I do really like the like grooming aspect of it, and really just what happens to Lucy and Simon is so heartbreaking. The way that the mage can take his own son and just give him away to be in like foster care and in like children's homes. just for him to recreate the prophecies of him then finding Simon again when his magic kicks in is insane. It's really insane. And I like that this book portrays that and just like the insanity of telling a small child that they are the chosen one who will save everyone. I think this book does it really, really well, and I appreciate it a lot for that. Now, what I'm mainly here for though is the romance. I love Simon and Baz together. They have such cute scenes, and what I really love about it is that they don't go from like hating each other to like being all cuddly loving each other. They still have that tension. Like from the first to the last page, they have this tension between them, and even when they start like figuring out that they actually have feelings for each other, it does really change. Like Baz will still give Simon so much shit, and I just love that. I think they're so adorable together. And there is this moment when Penny finally figures it out. Like for a long time she's just like, they're friends now, weird. And then she figures it out and she's like, okay, now it makes sense. What's happening here? And I just really love that. I also really love Agatha's character. I think it's so fun to put a character in here that just doesn't give a damn about her magic. And especially with Ab as well, the goat herd, we do see that just because nature or whatever gave you big magical powers, it doesn't mean that you have to use them, but society will push you into it. And I really, really enjoy that, because it just shows that if you have a lot of potential in our current like society, the society will try to push you to kind of fulfill that potential, to reach that potential, and to be someone great, even if you don't want to, even if you just want to live like a calm, normal life. And this like striving for like excellency, is that a word? Whatever. It's something that I really appreciate in this book. And Agatha is like a medium good witch, and she just doesn't care. She just wants to live her rich girl life with her normal friends, riding their horses. And I really appreciate that, because yeah, I think it's a perspective that you don't really find in magical books, that someone is like, yeah, what if I just want to ride horses, So I think it's like really, really clever and really smart to put a character like that in here. Agatha herself can be a little bit frustrating, but I feel like I always understand where she's coming from. And her naming her dog Lucy in the end is also kind of weird, but also oddly sweet, and I really like it. So I don't even want to talk about the whole thing with like Simon figuring out the conundrum is kind of himself, or like what's left when he uses magic he doesn't actually possess. That's like something that I do think is smart. I don't think I really figured that out when I read it the first time, but obviously when you reread the book, that's not the thing that keeps you reading. You know what I mean? It's those other things. So I had a great time rereading this book. I'm really glad I did do it. And with that, I'm going into book number 2, and we'll talk when I'm halfway through that one. I am now halfway through Wayward Son, and I'm here for another update. Now, I must be honest, I have read a little bit more than halfway actually. I'm almost 60% through with this one, and it has also been a couple of days since I last read in this book. Christmas time is all a little bit like overwhelming right now for me, so it took me a little while to get back to you. However, we are in the second book, as you could guess from the picture, like the cover. We are still following our two main characters of Simon and Baz. And while I'm rereading this one, I definitely see why I just don't enjoy the second book as much as I did the first one. And that's mostly because of the character dynamics. The relationship of Simon and Baz has shifted quite a bit. I'm not quite sure how much time has passed between like the end of the first book and then this one, but it is a couple of months to maybe almost a year-ish. And so our characters are all in a little bit of a different place. Now, I don't really want to talk too much about what those places are because it kind of spoils like who survives the first book and all of that. So I try to be a little bit vague here, but we are still mainly focusing on the romance between Simon and Baz. However, because Simon is in this like very awkward position where basically he has fulfilled his fate, he has done what was expected of him, what was prophesied, he doesn't really know how to fit into this world now. And it is like he has like certain challenges that I can only hint at, but that have like fundamentally challenged his like identity. And he probably also has like some post-traumatic stress. So I think it is like very reasonable and understandable why the characters are so different in this book. And I think with Baz, he also just has like this struggle, because when you get to this like happily ever after part, I think the first book already does a good job of showing that it's not all that. It's not how it works. But I think Baz still had this hope that it would mean that now they can be together, like for real. And it's not like that, and he also has to deal with that while also still like loving Simon so much. And I think one of the things I adore about Baz is just that he loves Simon so much, and through like against all of the obstacles and all of that, he just does, and he's not afraid of it. Like, he really stands by his love for him. So in this one, our characters go to America. I can't really explain why, but they do have to go look for someone. And so we do have also a completely different setting. Obviously, they have left Watford behind. They're now out of school. They're doing this like summer trip through the US because, there was some misplanning, let's just say. And so they have to road trip through the US. And so we learn a little bit more about the magical world in the US, how it works. Like, they have very different rules. They don't have like fancy schools like Watford and all of that. So I think that's all interesting. It's not that I don't like the book. And I think because I read Lucy Undying this year, and that is a book about like vampires trying to have like one of those like health cult things where they promise people like eternal beauty and youth, but they're vampires. And a similar thing actually we do have in here with the US. So I think kind of like the parallel of that is very interesting as well, reading both of these kind of close together. So yeah, overall, I would say I'm still enjoying my reread of this, but I also still very much understand past me who just couldn't love this book as much as I loved the first one. I'll be back when I have finished it, and then we can finally go into the final book for the first time. So yesterday I finished reading Wayward Son. I finished rereading Wayward Son. So I'm here to give you a little update on how it went. Now, I don't want to say too much about this book because it is rather short, and while I am enjoying it, I am still loving the characters. It can't live up to book one. So I gave this one 4 stars on reread again. I still think that what this book does makes sense, and it's not that it is uninteresting. It's just because the dynamics of the characters have shifted and all of that I find this a little bit just not quite as enjoyable as the first book. In the first book, you have very much the kind of hate to love but still hate dynamic of Simon and Baz, but in this one, because of what happened to Simon and also to Baz, they have changed as people, and so their relationship has gone kind of wobbly. They still really want to be together, but they are both so unsure about who they are now and also who the other person is now that they don't really find a way to really be with each other. And while I think that makes total sense after what happened in the first book, it's just not so enjoyable to read about. Like all the moments in the first book where I was giggling and kicking my feet, you don't really have that here. There are a few moments that are like really, really sweet and heartwarming, but this is really a book about these characters trying to figure out who they are now and how they can be together again. So in that sense, as I said, I like what this book is doing. It's just not quite as enjoyable to read about. Now, for the plot as well, I think that in the first book, the plot is very big and it's also very much inspired by Harry Potter. So in that sense, it is just very high stakes, you know. For the whole book, a lot of the characters think they won't survive it. In this book, however, while there are high stakes in a way, it takes a long time to really feel that way. And I think that is just a way of like this story kind of building up. We do have a big like road trip element in this book, so if you enjoy this kind of content, then maybe this is more up your alley. I don't particularly love a road trip. I do love Simon's love for an American car. I totally get it. Like there are some amazing American cars out there, don't get me wrong. Just like the fact of like being in a car, driving somewhere, talking or not talking, all of that, it's not like the most riveting content to me. I still like this book a lot. I like it a lot. So as I said, this one is 4 stars. Now, one thing I did not remember about this one is that it ends on an actual cliffhanger in a way. And now I'm like super intrigued to go into the final book and finally learn what happens. I'm excited to finally get to the end of the story with these characters. In the author's note, Rowell also said that she wrote this book during a time where she wasn't doing well, and I think that is an amazing thing to like have these characters that get you through something as an author, because these are characters that would get me through a lot as well. Like these characters live in my heart rent-free. Yeah, they're just fantastic. I also enjoy kind of like Agatha's story in a way in this book. However, I feel like we don't get quite enough of it. Like in the first book, it made sense that she's more of a minor side character. In this one, I would have liked to see a little bit more of her. We have her in the beginning and then in the end, but I feel like in the middle, we kind of lose track as the characters are kind of losing track of what they're actually doing and how it relates to Agatha. So that's like one criticism I have here. So I'm so intrigued for the final book. But before we get to that, I think I want to talk a few spoilers for the people who have read this book, because I just have to gush about these characters a little bit. So if you haven't read this book yet, use the chapters to jump over the spoiler part and hear my spoiler-free thoughts on the final book. In this one, as I have said in my last update, I think it was very interesting to have this idea with the vampires that are kind of in a wellness cult situation thing, which is very similar to Lucy Undying that I've read also this year. And I didn't even remember a lot of it. Like, I remembered a little bit of it, but yeah, it was really interesting to see kind of like the similarities in this idea, and that it is seemingly something that just makes sense, that people who want to be young and beautiful forever by doing like the weirdest wellness things, be it like using magical property stuff that is like from animals or whatever, it kind of makes sense that if they find out there's vampires and that even magicians, that they want a piece of that cake. So yeah, I enjoyed kind of like that idea, and it was interesting to see that play out in like two different books that I've read kind of close together without really meaning to. What I said I struggle with in this book a little bit is that the relationship between Baz and Simon is very on the line. Basically, Simon wants to break up before Baz breaks up because he is so sure that he's not worth anything. And so he thinks that if he breaks up with Baz, then he will basically relieve him of himself. I don't know what I just said. Ignore me. Baz, on the other hand, is still like so in love with Simon. And that is like one thing I just love so much about Baz as a character, that he's so sure of his feelings for Simon. He never wavers, but he just doesn't know how to show them. And I think that is a very great thing to portray in a book, because I think a lot of people struggle with that they really love another person, but like showing that love is a whole different story. Like showing it in a way that the other people really understands. And because Simon is kind of like in his like weird like happily ever after state where all he was supposed to do has been done, he really doesn't know who he is as a person. And he lost all of his magic, which for a long time was his defining trait. And so I think it is clear that he is suffering from like the trauma he had to experience, losing the one person he had always trusted, learning that this was the person who actually created him and his problems in the first place. And so Simon really went through a lot, and he's just not the type to talk about it with other people, to seek help. Simon is very much a golden retriever who has been like very severely kicked by his owner. And so he really doesn't know how to deal with it, apart from sulking on the couch. Baz is trying to help him in a way, but he can't break through. Like, Simon has such clear beliefs about like how other people now think about him that he can't see what is right in front of him, and that is Baz and Penelope still trying to help him a lot. And so basically Penelope comes up with this idea of going to the States, and the whole thing with her breakup with her boyfriend, her longtime like what is it called? Distance boyfriend? Oh, you know what I mean. Long distance boyfriend. I forgot about that whole scene, to be honest. And I don't know how I feel about Shepard. I think Shepard is a black dude, and the way he's treated by a lot of our characters in this book feels very unnecessarily cruel. Also, you know, you could say like Penelope is also not white, and Baz technically is also not white, even though because he is a vampire he looks white, which is also a thing I find a little bit weird. I felt like they treated Shepard like really, really badly, and I don't enjoy that. I think it is meant to like show that kind of Penelope is coming around in the end. They kind of like have a little thing, whatever that thing may be in the third book, but she's really trying to help him in the end when she finds out about his curse, which I also forgot about. But overall, I didn't particularly love the way Shepard was integrated into the group. Then we have the whole like big bad vampires in Las Vegas, which I think the whole like idea with Las Vegas being the vampire capital is very funny. I really loved how that was explored, and I also really loved the kind of like moments that Baz has when he understands more about being a vampire and what that really entails and how other vampires live, because he never really had a chance to learn about that world because he is so entrenched in the world of mages. And then Simon, being the complete asshole he can be, he's like, yeah, just stay with them, then you can be yourself. And I'm like, no, he can't, because Baz is a mage and a vampire, and whatever side he chooses, he will always be the odd one out. And it's also just so interesting that Baz is basically what these, like, what are they called? The new wave, new gen vampires, whatever they're called. What they want to achieve is basically Baz. But for Baz, it was such an alienating experience. He has always had to hide half of himself to be safe. And so, yeah, I think it's very interesting. And I think there could have been more discussion about all of that. I think a lot of that happens more internally for Baz, that we don't actually get to see a lot of this. And then we obviously see Simon being like a dick about it. So yeah, great job, Simon. As I said, I like what this book does. Now, as I said about Agatha, I think Agatha should be more in this book because this is a book about her in a way. She's the one who got into the dangerous stone with these vampires. I love the way it was described with Agatha and Penelope at the end of the book, that they kind of like find their friendship. And I love their friendship in a way because like Agatha is always like, oh, what does she want? And like Penelope just like really hangs on to this friendship, and Agatha does not understand why. So I'm definitely also intrigued to see how their relationship in the final book now. And overall, yeah, I just love these characters. I think they are great. Such a fun group of characters that really everyone has like their own struggles and everyone has to like grow up. And I think that's what I like about this. So we'll speak again when I am reading the final book. So this is going to be the most terrible update ever, but as you can see, I have a very stretched out cat right here, and today has just been a bit of a rough day, and it's already almost 6 in the evening. The light is fading, and I have just reached the halfway point in the third Simon Snow. Anyway, the wind blows. Finally, I took a bit of a break from the series for the start of the new year, but yeah, now I am back and I'm finally reading this book and I'm loving it. This is, I don't know what I expected. This is definitely different. I guess I kind of thought this would go more into the direction of Carry On again, where we do have more of the magical adventure and, the relationships and the characters and all of that are a little bit more in the background, and we have like maybe like one big threat they finally have to overcome or something like that. But this definitely feels more like the sequel to the second book, which I don't mean in a bad way. I did enjoy the second book. We do have our characters on kind of different trajectories right now. We have Penelope and Shepard who are trying to figure something out together that I don't want to spoil because we only learn it at the end of the second book. But yeah, basically there's something going on with Shepard and these two are working together. Then Agatha is working with a new character called Neve, and they are caring for some magical animals that maybe are on the cover of the book as well. So I'm intrigued to see where that goes. It does seem that there might be more wrong in this world than we currently know, and that the animals are kind of the ones that are already showing that there's something up. And then we have classic Beth and Simon who have to figure out their relationship still. I really, really love that part. I think that, there were like so many things already where I was just kicking my feet, and I feel like they have now reached a point where they're moving on from all the stuff that just made me a little bit sad in the second book. Now, obviously, Simon is a character that has lived through a lot of trauma, and he still has a very hard time with dealing with that. We still have this theme of him kind of like believing that he would never see this day, that he would never survive this long, and now he really doesn't know what to do in a way. And I really like that we explore this more, but I especially like that it seems like Simon is finally growing a little bit in the process as well, where he felt like very stagnant in the second book. So I think the cat doesn't like it when I film, so she might leave and we might get a better angle. We'll see about that. But yeah, I'm really, really enjoying this book, and most of that is because of Simon and Baz. But we also do have a bit of a plot with them as well, as there seems to be kind of like this new movement of people who now think that they are the chosen one, because like with Simon, the way things played out, you could argue that he never was the chosen one. It's not how I would argue the case, but that's what some people do. And so they're kind of using that to pretend that they are now like, these like miracle healings that you sometimes see with these mega churches and stuff. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like the beginning stages of that we see here. And so we do have some missing characters, and they get wrapped up in these people who now say they are the chosen one, and they're kind of competing against each other and stuff like that. So we just started exploring that in this, like when we are reaching the halfway point of the book, so I'm intrigued to see where that will actually go and how maybe these different storylines will connect as well. I guess there should be some kind of connection in the end, but yeah, it is intriguing, but I'm mostly here for Baz and Simon and their relationship, and I just really want them to work out. I also think like some other things that we see in this one, really cute, really appreciated. And yeah, it's just one of those books that makes me unreasonably happy and just like kicking my feet and just like hoping, for the best for these characters. I just really want them to be okay. And so, yeah, we'll see whether that actually works out. We also get a new character in this one, Ruth. Don't really know what I want to say who Ruth is. I don't think it's like a big spoiler. It's basically Lucy's mother from the first book. And so I think that Lucy's family history will come out in this book as well. I'm really intrigued to see where that goes, because yeah, there is just so much like unresolved stuff that could be entangled with that. So yeah, I'm just gonna read the rest of this book. I hope to finish it tomorrow, because yeah, it would be great. Like I really like want to read this quite quickly now. Talk to you again once I'm finished with this book, and hopefully we will get a better update. I'm sorry this was so terrible. So we have made it to the final update of this vlog, because I did finish reading Anyway the Wind Blows. Again, I'm very sorry for the last update and how it looked. It was a rough day. I had a very rough couple of days pain-wise, and I hope you can forgive me. But honestly, this book made it better. I definitely needed this book in the last couple of days. I just love Simon and Baz, and I don't know how many times I have said that in this video. They are just, I love them. I think that Rainbow Rowell did the whole like angsty gay romance between two boys that went through a lot together perfectly. the relationship stuff in here is a 5 out of 5 stars for me. Did this book manage to find a plot that I'm actually interested in? No. So unfortunately, while I think this is kind of like a satisfying conclusion, I don't think Carry On really ever needed sequels. I must say that I'm not mad about having spent more time with Simon and Baz. I loved that experience, but the two sequels, they read more like maybe a little bit of like fan service or fan fiction even. We did not need them because they didn't really have a lot of plot that was interesting or, you know, just like enriching the world. It's like really weird when you have a first book that is already so contained and then you try to build on that, but you're not making it bigger in a way. Like obviously in the second book, we go to America. So we do see a different side of the magical world, but it's not really making it more understandable. If anything, I feel like, especially with like Shepherd and all of these creatures he has met, it makes it more muddled, like what's really going on here. So you don't really get the like magical system explained really. What's going on in this book? Also, I don't feel like it really ever got super explained in a way. And especially because like these magical people, they don't seem to really understand their magic that well. And considering that they have existed for like hundreds and hundreds of years, it seems a bit odd how little they understand about their own magic. But that's all right. That's just not what I was here for, and so I'm just putting it out there. If that's what you're looking for in the books, you will not find that. With the kind of question that is opened up at the beginning of this book with one of the characters that we get sporadically throughout the book, I like that we did get the resolution that was kind of set up with this. However, the way we got it was kind of stupid. It was kind of stupid, and I don't know why Rainbow Rowell didn't find like a better way to do it. I honestly think that maybe Rainbow Rowell isn't like a fantasy writer, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like the fantasy aspects of this are the weakest points, but I did not care because I love these characters so much. With this book, we do get the like neat little bow on the relationships, which is something that is kind of annoying. Like if you have a group of characters and in the end everyone gets paired up, whatever. I do like that it is more queer than it used to be, you know, back in the olden days with the YA books, so I can appreciate that. I did like kind of the moments. I did like you know, Shepherd and Penny, when they had their little moment, I was definitely giggling and kicking my feet and stuff. But yeah, it's not a perfect book, but I loved it. So I gave it 4.5 stars. Do with that whatever you will. I just had a fun time. This was the book that I needed right now. It took my head off things. We might be going into World War III, who knows, but I just had a good time with two chaotic gays. So maybe one last thing I want to say for this finale is that the plot that we get in this one, it felt very similar in kind of like the themes and the ideas to the second book. And that I find a little bit weird. Like I wanted something very, very different from this one. And I also didn't feel like we got like a real resolution at the end. Like for the theme, we did like get kind of like one person to be accountable for what they did. But I don't feel like the overall thing was really addressed. Maybe it was just the time it was written, and now we're already apparently 5 years later. How? But yeah, that was just a bit odd that apparently this thing was like stuck in Rainbow Rowell's mind to explore more. So that's what I'm gonna say spoiler free. I think I'm gonna go into a couple very short spoilers. I really don't want to overdo it here, but there are a couple of things I can talk better about if I go into spoilers. So if you have read the book, please stay with me. If you have not yet, then thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending time with me today talking about this series. I hope you at least pick up Carry On, because it is literally one of my favorite YA books of all time. Even though it's not perfect, it is amazing and you should give it a try. And yeah, thank you for watching. So let's talk a few quick spoilers. Now, at the beginning of the book, we do get introduced to the character of Ruth, which obviously sets up the question of, is Simon finally going to figure out who his family is? Now, he does in the end, and the way he does it is so stupid with that sword. Who came up with this idea? Like, I am very glad that he figured it out in the end, but personally, if I would have written the book, he would have figured it out with like specific clues throughout this book, and then actually some kind of like aftermath as well, where maybe they even find out, like, you know, what happened to Lucy. That would have been nice. At least a little bit of an idea why she's not around anymore. I mean, this is like a very, very tragic situation that we had there. And maybe this book in the tone just wasn't set up to really explore that. And then the other thing is that for Simon, this is like such a big revelation, because like throughout the whole book, and the second book as well, he is convinced that he's actually a normal. And even in the first book, he doesn't think he really is a magician, or he was born to a magical family. So in this one, you know, we did not explore what that really means for him, and how like he was changed so that now he doesn't have magic anymore. I feel like I wanted to see more of that. And then we get this whole plot with the new chosen one, and I didn't really love that. I feel like in the second book we already have this like idea with like this cult, and with like people trying to live forever and whatever. Like the commentary on that one was like very clear, and now we're going back into the next book, and then we're talking kind of about a cult again, and about like these promises of making yourself better. And why do we have the whole like cult thing twice? I really didn't understand that. And you know, in the second book with the vampires, I felt like it was still like a fresh idea. In this one, it just felt recycled in a way. Simon had to deal with this whole like chosen one thing for himself, but I don't know if this was like the right trigger to really get him to reflect on what happened to him. I also felt kind of weird because like throughout, Simon does mention his therapist a couple of times, but like, couldn't that have been an avenue to make him reflect on his past and what has been done to him more? Like, if we would have actually seen him talking to a therapist maybe and working things through, like that could have been an idea for this book. So plot-wise, this really wasn't it. Also, the whole thing with the goats, like I really like that we took up Ab's kind of fate again, because that was really, really sad. It was like one of the things about the first book that really hit me, because I did not expect that, like because the tone was more light, and then actually like someone important to Simon passed away in the finale of the book. So I did like that we take that up again, but for Simon it never really has like any, like, I don't know, he doesn't really care about it. We do see this whole thing with Agatha, who, yeah, Agatha basically owes her life to Ab in a way, but also that is like addressed in like one thought Agatha has, and then she takes up this whole like persona of now caring for the ghosts, which I'm glad that Agatha found a way, like found a position for herself in the magical world, because she has been struggling with that throughout all of the series. So I think that is kind of nice. It's not particularly what I saw her doing, but I do like the whole like idea with the relationship with Neve as well. It was kind of cute, but it was also a side quest, and in the end I don't know if it really added anything to the story. I think the individual parts of this story were just completely disconnected. Same with Shepherd's Curse. it had like the way Penny fixes this in the end. It has nothing to do with the rest of the story, and then she has enough time to by the end sweep into the main story. It was just it's not a good plot for a book. But I did like the little romancy bits. I did like Simon and Baz finally working through some things and working on things and not constantly hurting themselves. Baz is just my favorite character, and I want him to be happy, and I think I got that in this book, so I'm not complaining. You know what I mean? So I think that's where I will leave this video off. I had a lot of fun reading this series. Is this the best YA fantasy out there? No, I don't think so, but as I said, I love Carry On. I needed to share my love for Carry On, and I'm also happy I finally concluded the trilogy, so I can tick that off on my little series tracker. That's always a great feeling. So I hope you had fun watching this. I had fun filming this, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!